the whole way. Then when they saw me, they come and give us a hug. And they, oh, I remember you. You give me a lot of help in the kindergarten room. We see some of the children don't even speak because they come from different country, different culture, and they don't even don't can understand the English. We try our best to understand their need. We need to give our support. But if you are underpaid, if you don't get enough job, we don't get enough money, how we can serve them properly? So the government need to understand why he want to take away our rights to get a proper contract, and he want to take away our rights. So I am urge everybody in this province to stand beside us to get a proper deal, proper contract, and we want to get, if they are not paying the enough, not coming to reaching a proper deal, that means they're not investing for our future generation. They are making a big problem for the future generation, because they need to remember that the foundation is laying we are helping them to be a good human being. It's not something they are only paying us. They are not valuing us, what we are doing day to day. They are coming with the core. They don't know even how to put the shirt on, we are helping them, and the government is not valuing us, what we are doing. They are not even telling us. They are just thinking that they are on behalf of the parents. But who are we? We are also parents. We are also helping the children to develop their best in their future, to be a good human being, well-being, health, and their emotional development. So this is all for today. So I'm thanking for Dolly to stand and advocating on the parliament on behalf of all the education workers. So I am also urged for government and education minister to please come back with the fair deal with us, so then fair contract with us. So we don't want to go to strike. We don't want to go to strike. It's not something he's just telling other people that we education workers, everybody wants to go for strike. Yeah. No, we are asking for reaching a proper contract, so then we don't need to go for it. We want to get enough money. We don't need to go for the food bank. We want to get well paid. So then we need to give our full potential for the children. We don't need to think about what we can eat at the table and the dinner table. So we are urging for you to come with the proper contract, proper wages. So we want to go back to school to serve our children, serve our community, serve our future generation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. You touched on so many things, but one thing I want to highlight is, as an ECE, you talked about kids who are some of the youngest, and during that time, and I was the early childhood education critic, childcare critic, in my previous term, and I had a chance to learn about what it means to have, ECEs who are well paid, who are respected for the job they do, who have good working condition. Because before Barbara talked about this as well, your working condition is that child's learning environment. And all of those things really matter. And you talked about the development of that child, the development of their minds and their bodies, and all of that really matters at that time.
It really matters.
In the earliest ages. And this government right now, what they're doing is they're attacking workers who, by the way, have been trying to negotiate. So CUPE, the Canadian Employees for Canadian Union for Public Employees, has been trying to negotiate for almost half a year now with this government. And usually the most final stage is when the actual push back and forth happens and they come to an agreement. And this is this critical time when CUPE is saying, you know what, let's figure out what would work with the government, because we also need to make sure that we pay a living wage to these workers. And the government puts this bill forward, which really impacts the rights of these workers to bargain, to associate, and the fact that they're now imposing fines for those who will go on strike on Friday, it goes beyond. I mean, the notwithstanding clause was not put in for this. This is not what the the forefathers who thought about this, this is not why they put in the notwithstanding clause. And it is really sad that the government is using a back to work legislation, using the notwithstanding clause to do that. And then they're imposing fines on people who want to show solidarity and who want to stand up for their right. So thank you so much for sharing your, as an ECE, your story. We appreciate you also highlighting, what it means for the child as well, for the children as well.
Thank you.
Who do we have next? And if we could finish everybody, then once I would love to invite everyone and we could have an open discussion maybe if we have some time. So
let's so call next. I have Tracy right after. Tracy, you're ready?
Yeah, sure, I'm ready.
Perfect. Thank you, Tracy. I'm going to add you to the spotlight here.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Hi,
Tracy.
Hi, my name is Tracy Van Evera. I am an ECE in the area. I've been with the board now probably about almost 20 years. And I did daycare before that for about 20 years. So I've seen a lot of change go through with the school system and everything else. And sorry, I'm not a very good speaker, but I just wanted to say that they have taken away so much from the schools financially. They've taken EAs. They got rid of all the EAs. They've taken caretaking. They've taken office staff. They've doubled people's workloads. This has been going on for, it has to be at least 10 years, if not more. It's just become such a hardship. And because we all love our jobs the way we do, we want to go in and we want to be the best that we can be for these children, and just to make sure that they have such a wonderful experience, especially in kindergarten, because that's where I'm at. And it's just making it very, very difficult for us to have to go into the class sizes that we have to go into. You have a teacher and you have an ECE, and half the time the ECE is usually dealing with behavior issues and, exceptionalities and things like that. So you're really busy doing things like that. And that's fine if that's what we need to do, but we need more help. And I think that's like one of my biggest issues is we need more help. We need SNAs in the school. We need EAs in the school. We need people to help with the children. We have one SNA in our school that goes from classroom to classroom all day, never takes a lunch, never takes her breaks. She is always with children that are, running the halls, or, they're having a hard day, and, trying to help them that way. And, and as at our school, we are such a team, and we try and help any way that we can. But it's becoming so much. It's just, I come home exhausted every day, and it's changed so much over the years. So we want to keep the kids in school. We really want them in school. I want to stay in school. I don't want to strike, but I also think that they've frozen our wages for 10 years. They've said, nope, sorry, we're not going to bargain, go back to work. And we've done it. We keep doing it. We keep doing it. Inflation, everything else. I mean, I'm a single woman. I don't have another partner in my home to help me pay for my apartment or pay for groceries or anything else like that. So it's so strenuous, especially with the prices going up now, but I mean, a raise is great. That would be wonderful. We're very deserving of it. Our workloads have doubled in size, but it's just, I mean, for the kids too, it's just, we need, I think, who was it? I think it was Christine who said that it keeps us going. We don't want to be deflated. Like, it's just going to deflate us. And people are leaving. People are leaving the, not because they don't love the job. It's just because they can't survive at the job. And it's really sad. So anyway, I think I've covered it all.
Thank you.
Have any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, Tracy, and I think we spoke actually, and just like Hussain Auntie talked about as well. You both, the work that you do, and Christine joined before as well. These education workers who serve such an important purpose are driven away from their field, driven away from this job because they're not able to keep up with the expenses, with the rising cost of living, and this government is refusing to pay at the rate of inflation. So when we talk about the increases that they have had, these education workers have had, and this government is really putting out a lot of misinformation. So I just want to give you an idea of, and I think maybe we can mute. Okay, perfect. So I want to give you all an idea of what the increases have been, because Tracy touched on it. Since 2012, 10 years, 0% increase in 2012 for education workers, 0 in 2013, 0 in 2014, 0 in 2015, until 2016 when they had 1%. And then 0.5% in 2017, the beginning of the year, and then 1.5 in 2017, and then 1% and 1% in 2018 and 19, and then 0.5% in 2019, end of the year, and then 1% 2019, 1% 2020, 1% 2021. And when I talk about these percentages, this is below inflation for quite a few of the years. So first, almost half the decade, you had 0% increase. So while inflation, the price of everything, you can imagine, things that you bought 10 years ago cost much, much more. But these workers haven't gotten a proper raise or proper increase in their wages based on inflation. And one of the biggest argument that the workers were talking about is, let us just keep up with the cost of living. Let us keep up so that we could continue doing this job that we love doing. And Tracy really talked about what it means for her to do the work that she does in her school. And sometimes you really fill in those gaps as well, even though it's not truly part of your job. But all of you here, I know that you fill in different gaps as well. So thank you very much, Tracy, for joining. And I really appreciate you sharing with us.
No, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for fighting for us and for advocating for us. Like, I really, really appreciate that. We all do.
Thank you. Thank you. And we will continue. I can promise you all that the last 2-3 days, we have been relentless in the House. We're trying everything possible. They have changed they have changed the standing order, which is the rules that allow us to function within our legislature, within Parliament. They have changed those rules, by the way, in the last term. And because they have changed rules, as official opposition, we can do less things now. To delay something, we can do less to debate. They have limited time for debate for a bill. So that means there are less tools available for us to fight back, because this government wants ultimate control, and that's what they're doing right now. So thank you very much to all of you, and we will continue fighting. That I can promise you.
Thank you, Tracy. Up next, I have Renee.
Hi there, just starting up the video. Here we go.
Thank you, Renee.
Hi there. Thanks so much, Dolly, for inviting me to speak. I am a resident of Scarborough Southwest, a parent of a child in secondary, grade 11. I'm also an ECE. However, I'm on currently a medical leave. Speaking from a parent, and that's kind of where I wanted to speak from, I have to be honest, I look at our education system and how much it is deteriorating. And right now, the government is holding the sledgehammer. And we as parents are kind of, hands are up in the air, our hands are tied behind our backs, and, not knowing where our kids are going to end up. Do I want my child home on Friday? No, absolutely not. But do I know that the importance of our educational assistants, our SNAs, our special needs assistants, our early childhood educators, our office, our IT. You know, we've got our janitorial staff. All these people make the company run. And if we look at school as a company, if we lose them, the company can't run. And you know, it's hard, or maybe it's easy for people to look at, you know, our school system and go, okay, well, you don't like it, quit. Fair enough. But who's going to take that place? Because I can tell you, parents, you talk to parents, they don't want to teach their kids. We send our kids to school so that they are taught, they have an education. You know, at the end of the day, during the pandemic, I had my daughter home high school. I didn't want to go through grade 9 and 10 and a little bit of grade 8 with her.
There are trained people to do that. Yeah.
There are people who went to school.
Yeah.
For example, I went to school to become an early childhood educator. I love my job. I can't wait to get back to school. But as I talk to my fellow co-workers and people that I've kept in touch with, I have a roster of ECEs across the board, the Toronto District School Board, that we became mentors for ECEs at newly hired ECEs in the school system. Listening to their stories, it's heartbreaking. I believe it was Tracy just previous talked about, you're running after children who are in need of that support, that one-on-one. That's actually not our job. Our job isn't to be a one-on-one support, but yet so many ECEs are in kindergarten shadowing 1 or 2 children. It is supposed to be a co-partnership of, you know, a teacher and a ECE working together. And you're talking a classroom. If you go into your child's classroom right now and you see the size of that classroom, imagine 35, sometimes up to 35 4- and 5-year-olds running around. It's absolute mayhem. So what we're trying to, you know, I know, be it you're for or against the union, at the end of the day, the union is trying to speak for us. And so looking at getting an ECE in every classroom, that's on a personal level. But I can tell you, having worked in a classroom with 30 plus kindergarten kids in a shoebox, you're not making an impact, and these kids are suffering. So that child who is independent, able to function on their own, can tie their shoes, can dress themselves, knows their ABCs, knows their 1, 2, 3s, well, they're missing out because they don't have me, a fellow ECE, in that room, because they're spent shadowing a child who's having a difficult time, who 100% needs that support. You look at the start of the school year, the 168 approximately, don't quote me on the number, ECEs were laid off, which meant kindergarten classrooms were collapsed. Therefore, one classroom full of 30 plus kids, a teacher and an ECE, and then that secondary classroom had 15 kids without an ECE. Both classrooms are suffering. So this is part of what we're trying to fight for, is to get that help. I have a fellow SNA, special needs assistant, a friend of mine, who half of her day is spent working in one of the kindergarten classrooms because a child, a 4-year-old who has very high needs, she has to be in that classroom. So the school is losing out on their special needs assistant for half of the day. We're talking children who need that support. So for half of that day, that SNA is gone. That's not right. And we look at, as a parent now coming back, the government made the the big announcement of the catch-up payments of $200 per student up to 18 years. Well, if you look, as a parent, I did the crunching of the numbers. I went to the Ontario government. I looked at how many it said the data was from 2020 to 2021, both elementary and secondary students. There was 2,025,258 students times $200. That's $405 million and a few cents. $405 million. But yet here we are making less than or 39,000 a year for a job that you work only 10 months. That's right. ECEs, SNAs, EAs. We get laid off every summer. We don't have a job. We don't get paid. So we now have to apply for EI. I can't leave personal now, but I can't leave the country, because if I leave the country, I don't get paid for EI. So in the summer, when my friends are off to Florida or Europe or whatnot, they get to have fun. I can't go because I need that money. I rely on that money because I don't make enough during the school year. And then the only other thing that I wanted to talk about was the cut to sick leave and disability. They're cutting it. So someone like me, without getting too personal, is dealing with a heart issue. I am desperately freaking out, scared that I will eventually get back to work. But if I had a relapse, I don't have those benefits anymore, which means I don't get paid. And that's scary. So I look at that, the government, the Ford nation, enough of the bullying. They have 83 seats, correct me if I'm wrong, Dolly, with the NDP at 39.
31.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hearing that, it is like, it's the old-fashioned bully. Like,
Yeah.
I just can't, as a parent, I sit back and I look at this and I go, wait a second, it's not even a fair fight, because no matter how much as parents, as we come forward, or myself working in the education system, I can't, my voice means nothing. So appreciative of your hard work. I know that the parents are fed up, and I get it. We just came out of a pandemic, or currently, or whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah.
But we've got to come up with a fair result, and just forcing us back to work through this bill is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't want to see that happen. So someone's got to take the sledgehammer away from Lecce, away from Ford. Enough's enough.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for thank you for sharing your personal story as well. I know it's difficult to do that, and I appreciate you doing sharing that, because it really gives the real story. Minister Lecce, Stephen Lecce, one of the things that he does is he always talks about, well, they have this and this, and they're some of the best paid workers in the country, and it's just misinformation. It's just not true. This morning, a few of my colleagues were kicked out of the legislature, and they were, I think they were doing their job. They were correcting the government, correcting the premier, saying that they are lying. And unfortunately, you cannot say these specific words. Someone can say a lot of lies in the House, but you cannot say you're lying in the House. So in Parliament, we have certain rules that you have to abide by. And so the leader of the official opposition actually called out Doug Ford and said, you are lying. And one of the things they're lying about is this sort of illusion they have created about sick days and all these luxury items that education workers have, and completely disregard the reality of their workspace, their work condition, what they do, as well as the reality of how what kind of increases or what kind of income they have. So thank you so much, Renee, for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I know we have a few other guests who are here today who are here right now as well. Who do we have next, Maisha?
Thank you. So we will have Judy next, but I also want everyone to know that MPP Marit Stiles is here. She's in the room. So after Judy, we will have MPP Stiles also say a few words.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Dolly. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for letting me speak for just a moment. I called your office because I am a grandmother of 7. So, there we go. Okay. Am I
Perfect.
on
Now I can see it. Yes.
There we go.
Yes, I said.
I am a grandmother of 7 children. 6 of them attend TDSB schools. I'm a former teacher, and actually I was coordinator of special education for a while in New York region. So I'm calling mainly on behalf of my grandchildren, and actually 2 of my own children are teachers. So I'm speaking on their behalf as well, because this action by the government is unconscionable. It's unbelievable that they would devalue our most important employees so much. If we do not have the support of our caretakers and our secretaries and the educational assistants, the school cannot operate. If we do not have good quality support in the schools cannot operate. I don't want to repeat what everyone has said. My very eloquent daughter-in-law spoke first, Barbara, and said it so much better than I could say it. But I just feel so sad that this is happening. I feel it's almost like a dictatorship, that they would try to infringe on our rights as citizens to negotiate a fair settlement. I'm so sad for my grandchildren who have just gone through 2-3 years of COVID. My grandson, who is 14, is sick in bed right now with a fever and a cough. Who knows? Could be COVID again. It's hard to say. But their lives have been disrupted in such a way that it will not be rectified for a long time. But to say for Minister Lecce to say the most important thing is to keep children in schools is totally the wrong thing to say, because EAs and teachers and caretakers and principals and secretaries, they're not babysitters, they are educators. And I want the very, very best education for my grandchildren. So whatever you can do to help us move in that direction, but Dolly, I so appreciate it. I appreciate what your party is doing, and please just let us all know how we can help you, because this has to stop.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I think you give as a grandmother, bringing in this perspective, and I know I see Marit Stiles, my colleague and the former critic for education as well, who's fought relentlessly in the House and this morning as well. I think you really gave a really good perspective, Judy, and I think as a former teacher, you're able to see how our education system is deteriorating, what
Yes.
it means for your grandchildren, and you said it so beautifully. All we want is the best education for our kids, and it's not as simple as just putting those kids in the classroom. Because, and Marit points this out all the time, is that under this government, we had 27 weeks where schools were closed. Where did that argument go at that time? He didn't talk about we have to make sure that kids are back in school. No, it's only when it's fitting for them to talk about this, they use this argument to talk about children, but without the education workers, you don't have a functioning school. You don't have the best quality education that we need.
Absolutely. And I just want to add something else. I do volunteer for Feed Scarborough. I'm very involved with the food banks as well. And I am perfectly aware that some of our workers are now using food banks. I can say that for a fact. So thank you. Thank you for your action. Don't stop fighting.
We won't.
I will be out there protesting as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye now.
And bye, Judy. Thank you so much. Please welcome MPP Mart Stiles from Davenport, also our leadership candidate, if I may say, and education critic for the last 4 or 5 years now, and an incredible fighter for her community in Davenport, but also across the province when it comes to our children's education, the best education that we need in our province. Someone who does not hold back in fighting against Stephen Lecce. I think she's been an incredible, incredible leader in the House, holding this government to account on every single issue, but specifically on education. And I'm just so proud to have her join us today. Thank you so much, Marit, for making the time.
Well, thank you so much, Dolly. And can I just say too, I don't know how many people here got a chance to see Dolly in action today at Queen's Park in question period, but it was one of the highlights of the day, of the week, really. She was amazing. And as always, Dolly, you're just such an incredible advocate for your community, but for Ontarians too, right? For all of us and for our education system. And you were really on fire. But we all felt that way today because we were so fired up because this legislation, as Judy said, it's really important. I know you've already talked a lot about this tonight, but it's historic. What the government is trying to do here, and it has very big implications. And I just wanted to, if I might, just talk about two little things, because I know you talked about a lot already. But one of the things is that it's really struck me that the government has been pushing to get to this point for months. So they started to talk about in the springtime, before the election even, they started to talk in a kind of threatening way about the upcoming negotiations with education workers. And they started to talk about, the threat to disrupting schools way back when, long before anybody was even at the negotiating table. And I remember saying, and you said this too, Dolly, that's not how you start these conversations, right? Many of us have worked in environments where we were either, we were negotiated for salaries. And many of us have worked in unionized environments, either on the management side or the employee side. And we've been through this before. And that's not how you start. That's a really bad way to start a discussion about wages, especially at a time when we've gone through such a difficult period. And those folks on the front line, who they've been calling heroes, are seeing the cost of living increase at such a ridiculous rate. And so it really struck me then that they were starting out on the wrong foot. That if you want to actually have a good conversation and come to a negotiated agreement about what wages should increase at, which is a big discussion for lots of workers right now, you need to get to the table and roll up your sleeves and have that conversation and listen to each other. And the government,
in good faith.
Right, in good faith, and the government took a totally different approach. They started threatening from before they even sat down. They started threatening that they would prevent any strike. And you and I both know too that for this government, they've got lots of power and lots of privilege, those folks. And the education workers that we're talking about are, some of the lowest paid workers in the province. They also do some of the most important work. And so to start out that way, I think the government, when what we're looking at today, this is on the shoulders of the government. They forced this situation. It's terrible. And anybody and I've negotiated on both sides, from the employee perspective and from an employer perspective in the past. And I mean, honestly, you fire anybody who negotiates like that. You get rid of them. That's terrible. So they're here. And so any disruption that happens is on them.
And the size of their legislation, I think, is proof of what you're talking about, Marit.
The
fact that overnight, overnight they just showed up with a giant legislation that must have taken, and you have to go through your lawyers, the government has their lawyers and all of that work, which means they preemptively, they knew what, and that threat of back to work
Yes.
legislation was there. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's not negotiating in good
Absolutely.
faith.
We've been looking at this and saying, this did not come out overnight. This was probably worked on for months. I think that they had it ready months and months ago.
Yeah.
And because that was always their intention. Yeah, which is really
Yeah.
shameful because again, that's not bargaining in good faith. That's not, and that is a principle, right? That you head into these conversations with. And they are conversations. That's how it starts. It's like you go to your boss, you say, you know, even if you don't have a union, look, I got to tell you, you know, the amount you're paying me right now, I can't keep going like this. It's not enough to even get by on, and I can't afford to keep working like this. And we need to talk about something else. And then you have a conversation, and that's really what this should be, but it's not.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, Dolly, and I know you've probably talked about this already, but is where does this take us? Because I'm really concerned, not just about what happens on Friday, which I think, you know, I should say, I don't know. I've talked to so many education workers. I don't know one education worker who doesn't want to be in a classroom, in a school on Friday. Like they love these students. If it's, you know, whether it's a custodian, you know, that knows all the kids by name and makes sure that everything is nicely kept clean and maintained and that the kids all love, or whether it's that educational assistant who helps the kid with special needs and knows how much that family depends on them too, and that teacher, none of them want to be out of the classroom. They're desperate to be there. But the reality is that they've hit this place where things are not good, and you know that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure you're hearing from lots of people in that situation.
And I think that's what people are really worried about right now. And one of the things I'm really proud of is seeing the amount of, you know, people who are workers from other sectors have come out in solidarity and are, you know, showing their support. And it really shows the strength of Ontarians. It really shows the strength of people who are saying, you know what, this is not fair. That's not the province that I want to build. And it's not the province I want for my kids. And one of the things we've been talking about dismantling is the government's offer. They talk about it in percentage, and I like to give the cents number. And Jamie West, our labor critic, you know, talked about how it's between I believe 5 cents to 55 cents. Because so depending on how much you earn, you will get a 5 cents increase, for example. And that's what the government's offer is. And they'll, you know, because these folks haven't had an increase for a very long time, 5 cents in percentage will be like, oh, this is, well, they're getting a 3%, 4% increase. It's because they haven't had a raise in a very long time.
Yeah, that's right.
And they don't make a living wage. You know, if someone's making $30,000 a year,
right, like 5% of not very much is still not very much. You know?
Exactly.
And when you consider how much, like, and 5%, I mean, we're not even talking 5%, we're talking a nickel, not 5%, a nickel of not very much, right? Like it's, and I, you know, and here's where what I'm worried about is, you know, the last year in particular, we've really seen in our healthcare system a crisis. And I know that we've always had shortages of certain healthcare workers in some parts of the province, in some parts of the GTA. It's been harder and harder. But really right now we're seeing a crisis with
leaving.
Emergency rooms. People are waiting 10, 20 hours to see a doctor. People can't find a doctor, yet alone, you know, a nurse practitioner or something like that. And why are we having these problems? Because there aren't enough nurses and other healthcare workers. Right. And so why are there not enough of these workers? Because the government has frozen their wages for so long, and they've gone through the pandemic, which was really hard on them. And they're saying to themselves, do I need this? I could go and get a job in a grocery store. And I mean, I might not make as much money, but I might not have as much stress. Or, you know, like maybe I don't need this. Maybe I don't need to feel unsafe. And so we're losing healthcare workers at a ridiculous rate, and our healthcare system is suffering. And that's what I'm worried is going to happen here. And in fact, it is already happening. We are starting to see in many of the school boards, they're short education workers, teachers, and other positions. and they can't find anybody to do the jobs because guess what? The jobs are tough. They're not easy. It is hard, especially when you don't have enough educational assistance and you have so many kids who need with special needs, with complex needs, who need extra support, and you don't have enough of those folks, then that means that they're serving 600 students. I mean, across the school, right? Or something, a couple of educational assistants in a big school. It's a really hard job. They're feeling the stress. And then to top it off, they're juggling more than one job often because they don't make enough money. They're going to food banks to feed their kids. We know this. This is a reality. What's going to happen? They're going to leave. They're going to go and find other work or, because it's not worth it to them. And that is a tragedy because we will not, as a education system, our kids will suffer. And so this government, what they're doing right now, and the threats and the disruption that they're causing, that's going to drive a crisis in education, just like we're seeing in healthcare. That's my real big concern here.
Thank you so much, Marit. I think, and that's what everyone's concerned about right now. Because in the name of students, they're saying they're talking about, this is the well-being of students, except what they're doing will actually cause a barrier to accessing the support that they need to be inside classrooms. And it's the exact opposite of what this government is claiming to do. Would you be able to end off with a little, I guess, a bit of hope in terms of,
yes,
we know that CUPE has, they have kind of gone back and said, you know what, we're willing to take a little bit off of our ask, but still we want to negotiate and we want to be able to, do well for our workers. And workers are coming back and saying, we also don't want to strike, but you're giving us no choice.
Yeah.
And I know that people across the province are showing solidarity. We are fighting hard, anything so that people can keep going for the next 2 days until we hit Friday.
Yeah, I think it's making a big difference. I know that a lot of people have been phoning the government, phoning MPPs, particularly conservative MPPs, and calling into radio shows and everything and saying, these are my concerns. And the government really has to show some goodwill here. I think it's pretty clear that the education workers in our province deserve so much better than this. And they really, they really don't want to have to disrupt learning. They know how important it is to our kids. I think that everything that the broader public is doing is really going to make a difference. We need to make those calls. We need to make sure to reach out to those people in our lives who are the ones who are education workers and tell them we know they matter. They matter and we're behind them. Because it is a very difficult time for all of them. So yeah, definitely make those calls. Keep putting the pressure on Doug Ford. We in the legislature, Dolly and I and the other NDP MPPs in the official opposition, we're going to keep pushing back and raising the concerns. I mean, that's the other thing, Dolly, and I know you know this. Like, we've received lots of emails from many of you sharing your stories and what your concerns are and why you want us to push against this legislation and to push the government into coming up with an agreement. And I think that's we've been able to take those voices into the legislature, and it's really powerful. It's nothing like if I could say a million times, Doug Ford, this isn't good, shelve this legislation. But when I say, you know what, Misha says, here's Misha's story, or here's Judy's story, or here's Renee's story. That for them, it's real. It's not just me, some MPP from the NDP. It's real people. And I think that they need to hear from as many of us as possible. So I would say, absolutely, there's hope. And I want to also take it one step further, Dolly, and say, I think that Ontarians are feeling pretty low right now, generally, about the state of things. It's been a rough few years. I think that we have a government, and this government and past governments who've kind of told people, look, life is like this. You shouldn't expect too much. You shouldn't expect more from your elected representatives. And I really believe we have to change that. Ontario is an amazing province. We have one of the best education systems in the world. It's faltering right now because this government isn't investing the dollars that they have, that they're sitting on. So we can make them do that. We can push them to invest more. And we can elect governments too that put people first. and put our kids first. And I think that's where Ontarians need to be inspired to believe that there's more, that we can expect more, and we should. This is not normal what's happening right now, and we shouldn't get used to it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time, Marit. I know that tomorrow morning we'll be back in the legislature, and whether it's civil disobedience, whether it's standing up and holding this government into account, we will fight back. And you can count on Marit. You can count on all of us in the official opposition to make sure that we're sharing your stories. And you said it beautifully. If we continue to, whether it's calling, emailing, and all of the folks that I have, and I have some wonderful guests after as well who will share individual stories, they're the one who allowed me, or actually encouraged me, I think, the last couple of days to continue this fight. And it also tells us that you're fighting and you're on the right side. And it helps us continue that as well. So thank you so much, because your stories really matter. And I know that Marit, you have been incredible. Davenport's lucky to have you, and I know Ontario will be lucky to have you as well. Thank you for joining us and for taking the time. We'll see you next time. I know you've got a whole bunch of things on your plate.
Thank you so much, Dolly. It's such a pleasure, and so good to see so many of you here tonight. I really, it's a treat. It's a great way to end a very long day. And thank you, Dolly, as always, for being such an incredible leader in our province. It's
you too.
You're fantastic.
All the way. You're an inspiration. Thank you so much. And Ontario Parents Action Network, phones app. Good piece of information.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
We have Cassie now. Cassie,
Perfect.
are you able to unmute?
Yes.
Hi, Cassie.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Beautiful.
My camera too. Hi.
Thank you so much for joining. How are you doing?
Good, considering. So my name is Cassie. I'm currently a full-time office assistant with the TDSB. I started with them just over a year ago. I suppose I was replying to a tweet that someone had tweeted, and it's just misinformation that's been going around. And I think a lot of people have been talking about that. First of all, I think a lot of people believe this is about teachers. A lot of the tweets going out are saying they make over 100K a year. They get PA days off. They get 2 weeks off at Christmas, spring break, but they get summer holidays off. We don't get any of those things. As a support worker, we don't make 100K, and we don't get PA days off.
Yeah, so this is funny because Marit was just here, who joined us actually. One of the things I feel like that has become our job, and I've seen Marit do this a lot as well, is correcting the minister,
Yes.
who also spreads misinformation. And
Yes.
and he does it so that he can have people that, like that individual on Twitter, for example, who goes on and then shares it. So sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. So, and to me, I was just so frustrated. I spent my summer, basically, so I make, I'm in that around 400,000 K a year. That is me. I do have a second job. I work at FedEx part-time. I work at the school from 8 until 4, and I go to FedEx 5 till 9. And this makes me live. And I am on my own, and I do get by, and I do this Monday to Friday. We don't get PA days off. We do work. The teachers work as well. The support staff, we work. We do get March break off, and we do get the 2 weeks off at Christmas, although that does come out of our vacation pay. So I can't take vacation unless it's unpaid, and if it's approved by our principal at any other time throughout the school year, which obviously makes you're traveling during peak seasons. So that's when it's most expensive to travel, during the holidays. So we don't travel because it's expensive. And so that makes it hard if you want to see family, or if you have family going away on a trip, you usually can't join. So aside from that, other than that, and the same thing. So the summers, I work in an office. I work until the middle of July. I go back mid-August. I work in a high school, so we go back a bit earlier than the rest. It takes a lot to set a school up, even just lockers. You have to go around all the floors in the school, check all the lockers to see which ones are broken, et cetera, et cetera. And then we assign lockers. We get start registration. which is just a nightmare. Getting the kids IEPs, making sure they're there when they start school if we can. So the the files are being transported back and forth. There's a lot to do to set up. My first day at the TDSB at my school, there was a stabbing. I was there for 1 hour and a student was stabbed. And it was just, I was a supply office staff at that time. And you could just hear over the walkie-talkie, you know, for an ambulance, call 911. Everybody left the office and I was there alone. And this is my first day. We're in lockdown. I don't know really what's going on. And then there's a flood of phone calls from parents. Is my kid okay? I don't know. I don't know who was involved. Police are coming in now. Now they're asking for, you know, these kids' contact cards. So it's just like, you know, it was a very overwhelming and it was a lot. So these are things, you know, that are not talked about.
Type of days that you have.
Yeah. But then there's also, and then you deal with the aftermath once that's done with the students that come in. Miss, can I talk to you? Or they're crying, they have anxiety. Kids don't want to come back to school anymore. They're scared. I don't blame them, right? Fortunate for us, it wasn't a severe, I mean, it wasn't fatal and both students were okay at the end of it. So lucky for that. But there was a lot of aftermath in dealing with that. And we deal with that. In the office, we do deal with that. They come in and they want to talk. They come in, they want to cry. And that's okay. And that's what we're there for. So as far as that goes, that's part of, sometimes that can be part of our regular day. So for me, anyways, I work in the summer. I work to the mid of the summer. I because of my second job, I'm not entitled to EI. So I can't have that. I make too much for my second job to be entitled. So I work all summer. I work split shifts. I work at 6 a.m. until 12. And then I slept in my car for a couple hours because I didn't want to drive back to Ajax because the prices of gas are so much. So to me, it's not worth it. So then I went back to work from 5 until 9. And this is what I did all summer. And for my 4 weeks that I was off unpaid, and I was exhausted and I did cry. There were times I cried to work because I was so tired. Like, and that's just, and it's like, is this ever going to end? And you just feel trapped. Like it's this endless cycle. And then you hear people saying, oh, but you have the summer off. And you're just like, oh my gosh. But I enjoy doing what I do. I enjoy working with the children. I enjoy working with, I've worked with both, all ages, and I enjoy the relationships I have with some of the high school kids. I'm glad they feel comfortable coming to me, talking to me, and they feel safe to talk to me if they're having a panic attack or anxiety, or if they're just stressed out about something, they can come to me. I'm in the front office and the guidance. So I get it from both ends. And that's why I stay. I've always worked with children. I just feel at this time that Doug Ford, he can't bargain. He's not bargaining. That's part of his job. And if he can't do it, then maybe he should step down and have somebody replace him that can bargain, because that's what we want. He's taken the voices from us, and it's not fair. It's just not fair at all. I just feel like I am being bullied by Doug Ford. And I feel it's interesting that it was the nurses and now the education support workers, which are both professions, which are high level of female employees. I'm just saying, like, is it easier for him because we are females? I don't know, or higher percentage of. This is how my feeling. I'm not saying, you know, it is what is happening. That's how I feel. And I just don't feel it's fair.
This is a profession that has about more than 70% for women.
Yeah.
And
to me, the one last thing too is we started a program at our high school this year. It's a DD program, developmentally delayed. We are looking to rename it. That is just, I guess, a standard name, but we are allowed to rename it. So we have 10 students now who have nonverbal, various, that range from various different medical conditions. And our startup for that program, they do not earn a traditional diploma. So they are taught life skills. So this being said, we're going to have a fridge, we're going to have a stove, we're going to have them doing laundry, they're going to be cooking, they're going to be cleaning. So we need everything. Put up a post on Facebook. So during my time, I still volunteer as much as I can at the school, going to prom, chaperoning, setting up sporting events, helping out, again, there, dances, etc., as much as I can, graduation. If I have to, usually this means I take time off of my night job, but I try to do as much as I can. And if I did work 2 jobs, I would have more time and more energy to put into these students. But I put up a post on Facebook just asking for donations. Does anybody have anything they're not using? Mops, brooms, vacuums, anything, puzzles, kids games, etc. And I got a lot of support from people who dropped off a lot of different things, but there were questions. Why isn't this program properly funded? Where's the budget for this? Well, maybe the budget's in Doug Ford's 30 cabinets. Like, he has the largest cabinet right now, does he not? So maybe that's where the budget went, right? But it is not fair to start a program with these kids who need so much and we have so little.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Cassie. I think I want to actually pick up on the last bit as well, just before I call the next guest. They actually, this government gave themselves raises over the past years.
Yes.
And just recently, they have the biggest, group of ministers. I don't know, 30 or 40 of them or something.
Mm-hmm.
They have parliamentary assistants. They gave themselves all these, chair positions, vice chair positions. They even took positions from us.
Yes.
That were traditionally positions that official opposition members hold. They have taken those away and given themselves those positions so they could get the raises, because MPPs themselves actually don't get increases. So their MPP salaries have been frozen for a very long time. But if you give yourself these positions, or ministries, etc., you can give yourself the extra bonuses, and that's what Doug Ford has done to give himself, I think, a 9% raise or something like that. And Marit put it so beautifully: when you make less, a 5% increase is still less. It's a little bit of 5% is still a little bit, a little and a large amount, or a little bit of a big amount, it's still quite a bit. And that's what we're fighting with right now. They're fighting with people who are the lowest paid education workers across the province. And the fact that you have to work 2 jobs to be able to maintain, and
just having people in the system that care. Like, I care. And there are a lot of people that do care, and you don't want to lose those people. Because even when this all started, I was like, maybe I should work at FedEx and become a manager there, and of course you're going to make much more, right? But is that something you want to do? And what about the children? And then you walk into the school, oh, miss, I like your shirt, or miss, how you doing, or miss, like, it's Spirit Week, so we're dressing up, we're involved, the staff, most of the staff wear a Halloween costume, pajama day. We have pajama day tomorrow. I'm like, don't forget your teddy bears. We make these announcements, and they're like, oh, miss, that's so cute, right? And it's just nice to have this, like, these relationships, but you don't want to lose the genuine people that genuinely care about them. And that's why I feel like it's going to happen. Last Christmas, we in the office, you get to know the students, and a few people, students who are kind of by themselves in the hallway, let's send them, you can send like a little Christmas card with a candy cane. Let's send those students a special one so they get it delivered in their class. But it's just, so you're just being mindful of those students who maybe sit by themselves, maybe don't have a lot of friends. I have another student who pulled a fire extinguisher, ran downstairs, chased 2 people in the office, let it off. And I'm like, I stand up, I'm like, hey, like, is so-and-so, like, and then I talked with him, and he has a bad temper. And I said, I used to have a bad temper. I understand, but you need to just relax, because it's not going to get you anywhere, and it takes away from those kids. But it's being able, and since then, he comes to me in the guidance office. He's like, miss, I was feeling very upset about something the last 2 days. And he said, I just was going to come down here for 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, that's not a problem. Does your teacher know where you are? I'm going to call up. And that's it. And then he went back to class. And that's how it should be. Right. But let's not lose the good workers.
Thank you so much, Casey.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the work you do. Continue on. I hope it doesn't discourage you, because we'll keep fighting for all of you. I want to invite my next guest, and I know you've all given me a lot of time, so I really appreciate it. Maisha, who do we have next? I have
We have Julius next.
Julius is next. Hi, Julius.
And after that, we have 3 more. And
Philip, Sarah, and Misha. Perfect. Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Julius, thank you for
Hello.
waiting. Go ahead.
Hi, Dolly. Good. Thanks for having me here. Thank you, Misha.
Good to have you here. Thank you, my
Yeah.
friend.
So yeah, I'm the community director for Urban Promise Toronto. It's a charity that works with trying to reach children in Toronto community housing specifically with the love of Jesus and raising them into leaders, and with those leaders restore their community. So it's a lot of after school program and seasonal camps. And so we work with a lot of families and community partnerships, but I'm also a basketball coach with CCYA's Jeremy Lin Basketball School. I've also been a past chess, cubing, coding, and games instructor during lunchtime in the schools. And so I want to speak on behalf on basically the Toronto community housing families, right? And I don't know if people know this, but I mean, Toronto is the largest housing provider in all of Canada, second to North America, next to New York. And a lot of my families are single parent led, and a lot of them are 24 and younger, with an annual income of 19,000, and that's crazy, right? And so the impact on my families, I mean, parents can care less about some of the details about what's happening with the strike, honestly. The names, the parties, the faces, unless they're the type of families where they always have the news on, which is just adding trauma to their experience, right? But
I am impressed by the amount of parents that have reached out.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm impressed, and I think a lot of people who there is that one education worker is that their kid knows by name and comes home and talks about, and it's that it makes it special, right? It's and I think Casey just talked about how it's pajama day and this is very special. And even though it looks like it's something so simple and small, it actually is so big for that kid, for that
I would
child.
never underestimate that.
Yeah,
it's so important. Yeah. And so my parents are like, I mean, some of my parents, right? Because they have no choice but to see what's on the news and they know what's happening. And then the others are like, oh, another thing again. I just need rest. I need respite. I don't want my kids to be left behind because they've already seen the negative results of what they're missing out on. They're missing so many opportunities. They can't even lead themselves and lead others. They're missing those leadership development skills as well. They're not only losing the quality, but now the quantity of education. People are totally, I'm hearing from everybody, they're definitely losing their jobs. And I have to explain with some of my families, like it's a huge learning curve for some of them to explain the bigger picture of why this is happening. Like, Dahlia, it's like they have to understand like there's delayed gratification versus the immediate needs. But then when poverty is like a thing for them, it's a harsh reality. I mean, like, it's like a 20 to 50% increase visiting food banks. And I know some of them are education workers. I mean, I volunteered and now I am part of like even the recipient of Feed Scarborough. Shout out to Chef Suman, right? But it's a harsh and true experience. And then when you're stuck at home, and I mean, for this Friday, if you're stuck at home, the housing is not built for families, especially for larger ones who are being immigrated, right? Too many people in the house likely to get sick. And then when they need to play outside, the parks and basketball courts are broken down, long lineups at the doctors. Some don't even bother to go to the clinic. And then don't talk about like special needs and ODSP rates. There's an impact, a real negative impact. Just disrupts the job schedule. And then they got to find another job to make ends meet, like some people were mentioning. And so, and now I'm hearing about the 69 bus providing like to get all this access to these places. But there's definitely a negative impact on the families. And I just want people to understand, like, yeah, these harsh realities with what's happening now, with the impact on the community, with the education workers and the quality and the quantity of this education. Now there's like lack of access and space to these well-resourced classrooms. And then when my kids see like, that roof is not fixed, we don't have enough of this, there's only one teacher in this classroom, but we all have different learning styles. One whistle may work, maybe two whistles will work in this gym, but there's a lack of school mentors now with some what right?
Yeah. And this is one of the things that we need funding for our schools. And
Mhm.
one of the biggest issues that we have seen with this government is they have introduced this, sort of $200, $250 that they're
Yeah.
giving to parents, and you have to apply for it. By the way, if you're a parent, apply for it because you should get that funding if the government's just going to waste it otherwise. But this is the argument they're using. They're saying, well, we're going to spend millions of dollars to give a small amount of money to parents, which, by the way, if you need to go and get, so that you could have tutors or something, which more than one class, I don't know, you can't even afford one class with it.
Yeah.
And we're going to take away money that schools need for infrastructure and for education workers, for the educators. And the impact, and you work with kids, it impacts these children. It impacts their learning. It impacts the quality of their learning.
They're less coachable when
Yeah.
when we're doing basketball. They can't. Some of them are behind their reading comprehension skills, so they can't do the rest of their homework. Right? They don't know how to express their emotions because they're so used to being at home or with the mask on. And now we're going to do virtual learning again, maybe this Friday. I hope it doesn't go further than this. But yeah, you're right. I just want to support you guys. I want to encourage you to keep fighting and advocating for all of us. I am encouraged that there's someone like you and your team to really fight for us. Oh, sorry. Just recently, I was talking to some principals. Some of them are actually surprised that the TDSB local neighborhood support program, their schools are not actually listed, and I don't know why.
Okay, that's
And
something else we'll have to work on to make sure that it is listed and that we can connect the work that you do and connect with the kids as well.
yeah, and I don't know if there's anything that I could help with, but I'm just telling you the impact of what's dealing with the families, the community. So,
Thank you.
yeah, but thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
No, thank you very much. And I know that you work with children, with kids and young people who need a little bit of extra encouragement sometimes, who are brilliant and bright young people across our community. And I just want to say thank you so much as a community member and as a youth leader coming on board and sharing with us, what this means to you and supporting education workers. Thank you,
Yes.
Julia. I have Philip next, Maisha.
Yes, you have Philip next.
Perfect.
Thank you, Kuya Julius.
Thank you so much.
Hello?
Hi, Philip. Yes, I
Hi.
can see you. Perfect. Thank you so
Sorry,
much
hey.
for joining us.
Thank you for having me. My name is Philip Mills. My pronouns are he, him. I have two kids, 9 and 5 in the TDSB at Norman Cook right now. And this is more of a fun aside at this point. It's not too relevant, but I was running to be the city councilor for Scarborough Southwest in the most recent Toronto municipal election. And I mostly bring that up because a big part of that was sort of my despair at the election of this government. Tracy before had mentioned sort of the
Phil, do you want to tell us about education workers so we can focus on because I know that our audience wanna hear about how you feel as a parent dealing with this. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that would yeah, I had mostly remarks. It is mostly political upsetness at the Ford government more than it is about educational workers. But Tracy had mentioned the disappearance of EAs and SNAs, and my son, he's 9, he's on the autism spectrum. He used to have those services available to him, but they're not anymore. And that's just a direct result of this government not valuing education. I mean, and it's interesting that Merritt had said earlier that the government has to show goodwill. This government is not new.
We're optimistic, we're optimists, and we want to be able to, at least show the government, and we try our best to do this a lot. And I know we have Sarah and Misha who will bring in different perspective as well. And I thank you all for giving your time this evening, because I feel that these kind of conversations, and they're out there, and they will get to hear your stories. And I hope that this will sway them, because people are pushing back, the calls and the emails and these kind of conversations. I hope Minister Lecce sees it and says, you know what, I have parents who are upset with us. We have young youth leaders who are upset with us. They're not education workers. They're not union folks, but these are Ontarians. They matter. Your voices matter. But what they're
Yeah,
doing
that
to
was.
education workers impacts everybody, right? That notwithstanding
I,
clause. And I'm sure you're upset about that.
I mean, I think that's the main reason I'm here is like I don't have too much commentary, but it is like my kids are in school. They're in the education system, and if do we value education as a society, and if we do, why do they not get paid a living wage? I believe the number is what 50% of educational support staff have second jobs to kind of keep themselves maintained. This government doesn't care, and it's frustrating. And it's they want us to choose. They want us to make it out to be that they're the heroes defending children. If you're on the children's side, you're on the Ford government side, even though they're just casually normalizing the use of the notwithstanding clause, or you're on the side of, in their mind, or how they're trying to frame it, the greedy support staff. But they just want to be able to live like everyone else, like conservative MPPs who gave themselves a raise. They understand the rising cost of living. So why can they not extend that empathy to lower income workers?
And they give themselves much more heftier raise than anything that these education workers are asking for. One of the things that I highlighted yesterday was that some of these education workers make 1/4 of what some of these government members make, 1/4 or 1/5, and yet they're fighting back and they want to put this sledgehammer on their right to bargain. So thank you so much, Philip. I really appreciate you joining as a parent and sharing. And I know we share the frustration against this government. I'm an optimist. I like to make sure, see if we could at least negotiate and have, good dialogue and be able to work out something between us and the government, and obviously share the stories that you all bring into me. So thank you very much.
For letting me speak.
Yeah, of course, and we'll have you next time when we talk about other things that the government talks about, because there are a lot of different topics that I'm sure that we can hear your thoughts and ideas and how it impacts your children as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. Sarah, I have Sarah next.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you waiting and taking the time. I know everyone has incredible stories, and I really want to hear yours and how it impacts you and your family.
It's been good. You've distracted me away from grading for the whole evening. I have an excuse now not to finish that up tonight. But no, I decided to call in today because I saw the $4,000 fine for striking. And this is, I just put my toddlers down to their nap. I hadn't even seen what took place in the legislature. I had to catch up after speaking to your office and went down a little bit of a rabbit hole. But I saw that and I had to say something, and I had to speak up and have that opinion counted, just because I think about how much money that is and how it would literally be the difference between making mortgage payments, providing a Christmas this year for families, children, you name it. Like, I'm already seeing people online having to go through thrift shops, Facebook Marketplace, those sorts of things to kind of fill in gaps with inflation. But I called in as a mother of twin toddlers, so they won't be in the TDSB for another 2.5 years, but that's a long time for a lot to take place and a lot to be dismantled or privatized or whatever the case may be. I'm a wife of a frontline hospital worker. We just got through the pandemic, still worried about contracting COVID, still worried about the impacts of that. It's gone through our home already. I'm a contract faculty member at Laurier, and our strike clock began on the 25th of October. So we're seeing what happens there. So the empathy for the education workers that have this looming on Friday is very real in our household. But I also wanted to call in and represent my sister, who is an EA in a special education classroom as well. So it's a layered kind of blooming onion of different things to talk about. But seeing that, and my sister is with OPSU, not CUPE, but their contracts are under negotiation and are coming up as well. So what happens here will impact her. And I think about her applying for a second job right now. She got into the school board. She loves her job. I tell her every time I talk to her and hear about her day, I could not do her job. I'm talking toileting full-grown students, having hair pulled, the potential that she may get beaten up by a student who does not know any better, doesn't have control over that. And the fact that these education workers, especially in those spec ed classrooms, they give dignity and respect and nurturing to these students. And you have to have kind of a call to do that. You have to be in that space where it's something you love. And every time my sister tells me about a rough day, there's always a story that goes with it, where we took our students out for a walk today and I had this amazing conversation with a student that doesn't really open up. Or she told me today about her 60-year-old colleague who's a year out from having surgery, who runs alongside a student's bicycle so they can ride their bicycle as a means of kind of burning off some energy. Or a case where, oh, a student could have escalated, but when triggered, they didn't. And that's a huge win for that student today, and go them kind of idea. And just how proud I am of her for doing that, because again, I could not do her job. And I see her applying for a second job. I see her saying, we should go and take the girls, my children, out to this weekend excursion thing at like a farm. And oh, my colleague works there as well on weekends, off season, and all these different pieces to make ends meet. And I see how hard she works and how tired she is at the end of the day, but at the same time can't cover more than just rent, phone bill, food on the table, an electric bill, and that's it. Like it's minimal. And seeing the price and everything going up. And then even her mentioning to me today that she has colleagues that are just nearing retirement and only make $5 more per hour. And I think about how desperate we are for those individuals to work in special education, how you need those caring individuals who want to be there, who are passionate. And we've heard about that all evening. It's been like a delight to listen to all of the different accounts and the passion that goes with that profession. And yet seeing how the Ford government is treating these workers, seeing kind of the fear of everyone else kind of in line waiting for their turn at the negotiating table, and then seeing how everything is going up in terms of cost. I had to advocate. I had to say something about what's taking place. And then, yeah, the $4,000 fine, that's to give perspective. That's, if you're a university contract lecturer, that's half of your semester's pay if you have one course. So you would lose half. That's the amount. And I think it's absolutely appalling what's happening. And I worry again for what the girls are going to see when they get to kindergarten. So I thank you and your entire party for just what we saw today. I got chills after I hung up the phone and watched and caught up, and just seeing how hard everyone's fighting and listening to all of the stories tonight has just been, I have a little bit of hope at this point. But anything you need, please let everyone know what we can do.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All of you, really, this, when they introduced the legislation, it was, and knowing that they have really removed a lot of the tools that we have as official opposition, as other members in the House. And I was Deputy Whip before, so I saw the different stages when they removed these tools because they want to pass legislation like this. It was disheartening, to say the least. Because we knew that they had a goal to go, introduce it on this day, and bam, 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 and then by Thursday night they want to pass it. And I think you've hit the nail on another issue, which is this is the message they want to send to all workers across the board, across the province, right? There are people who are waiting for their time to collective bargain, right? And they want to send this message that here's how we're going to do it. And right before that, Philip talked about the government themselves, and we had other speakers who talked about how they gave themselves raises. And this is the type of government that we have. Just really, I say disrespectful, I'd say, because the work that they do, like you talked about, exactly what happens, and 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 I think the other side of it, the impact it has on that student, that grown student, for example, who's able to have that support, the fact that that kid is able to go to school
Yep.
because they have an education assistant there who's able to help them, bring them back to the classroom and able to learn. And that is the beautiful part of what we have right now, what we need even more,
Mhm.
and what we will lose out. And I just, it really breaks my heart to see how this government is treating these workers. And
Oh, absolutely.
and we'll fight. We will fight them,
Thank you.
tooth and nail.
And like I
thank
said,
you.
whatever you need, please let us all know.
Thank you. We want you to keep, writing about it, posting about it, sharing everywhere you can. I know there's a lot of people who have commented, and I will try my best to get to you after those comments as well. But it really helps. And all of your comments and all of your conversations have been on our social media feeds as well. And we have few media actually that are also listening in. Our local media is listening in,
Mhm.
and they will know that you have shared. And it's really powerful when we have family members, when we have community members, when you have people who are not educational workers, for example, coming in and sharing. So thank you very much.
Awesome, my pleasure. I can't wait
Yeah.
to listen to everyone else.
Thank you.
Take care.
And I take care, you as well. And I have Misha next.
Hi, Dolly. How are you?
Good to see you. And,
Good,
Misha,
good.
you and I actually talked during the pandemic about the work that you do, with young people and how important it
Yes.
is, and how you were one of those education workers who was left behind by the government, forgotten really, and how important it is to have the activities that you have with kids.
Right. Yeah. And well, I'm really glad to be here, and hello to everyone that's listening still. I struggled to get on tonight, but I did persevere because Dolly asked me to speak, and I think this is an important topic. I'm not sure how much new I have to add hearing everyone else speak. And I feel I'm kind of preaching to the converted. So I'll pick up on where you left off and make this a bit of a different angle and a call to action. I think the problem is simple if you deconstruct it. Take it from the last thing, the notwithstanding clause. That says it all. So Ford knows he's doing something illegal. He's shoving an illegal agreement and back to work legislation down people's throats, and he's covering his butt with a get out of jail free card. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not democratic. And it needs to be challenged at every point. He's punishing people with fines, like people that aren't making a lot of money. I mean, he drops $4,000 on a weekend somewhere. And these people are doing 2 or 3 jobs, I'm hearing, on tonight's call. It's unconscionable. And this is for expressing their legal right to negotiate and to withdraw their services or whatever. This is a legal right in Canada, and he's trampling all over it. This is becoming a dictatorship. And that concerns me. So I think we need to act. And so what can we do now? Talk to your friends and neighbors and people at school, like you just mentioned. Write to the politicians, protest wherever we can. And I don't know how we organize that. Support the education workers by showing up, bringing them coffees, whatever. And in the next election, get the vote out. 40% of Ontario voters voted last time. 43% of those voted for Ford. Fortunately, I had a good education, and I don't believe that Ontario has the best education system in the world anymore. It just doesn't. With the lack of funding and the lack of staffing and how crowded the schools are and the lack of facilities, it's not anymore, and it needs to be. And so that means 17% of Ontarians voted, of eligible voters voted for this government. If we want to change this, organize, act now and vote next time and get the vote out. I don't know what else to say. That's it.
That was perfect. Misha, that was perfect, because I think you've added the best conclusion and action for what we really need to do. Yes, and I should say, actually, there are quite a few different groups protesting, and I believe there'll be some tomorrow. There will be some on Friday, And actually, what we'll do is we'll share it on our social media so people can know about those. And you're absolutely right. I think it was 17 or 18%. But the fact that that's the percentage of the people, that's the mandate that this government has right now. So even though they have a supermajority and they're trampling on the rights of these workers, and they're sending a warning or trying to threaten workers across the province, and they have disregarded the needs of our kids and healthcare, youth support, community, so many things. If we are able to really organize, if we're able to come together in our neighborhoods, in our communities, as a province, we can actually have a government that works for the people, that actually works for the people, right?
Yeah.
So thank you.
And one of the challenges is because people are so stressed with inflation and multiple jobs, not just the education workers, they can't get out to a physical protest. So, if there's ways to do Facebook storms or Twitter storms or other ways that people can show their support, come up with some creative ways, other than the things I mentioned and that you've mentioned, that we need to do that. And again, as always, it's the kids and our health that are getting trampled on and not being served well, and democracy is suffering, and we need to stand up and do something.
Thank you so much, Misha. I really appreciate that. And I think those are some really, really great calls to action. What I'm going to do is share with you as soon as we find out the details of any protests that are happening. Yesterday evening, actually, there was a really, really good protest, really powerful protest outside Queen's Park. And it was just incredible to hear it from inside Parliament, because I was debating inside Parliament and I could just hear it. And it was just incredible. So what I'm going to do is, and we're right on at the end now of our town hall. I want to thank all our speakers. I believe some of them are still here, so I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come and share your story, share your thoughts with us, for taking so much time to be able to wait and listen to each other. It was really incredible to have that. I also want to take a moment to just kind of read some of the comments that we received, because I think it really highlights the sentiment of a lot of the people who you may not have seen their faces, but they share the same sentiment as many of our guests tonight. Diana McLaren. Hi, Diana. Thank you for joining us today. And this is what Diana wrote. She said, I feel such outrage at this situation. Education of our children is our only hope for a future and our education assistance. And workers should be highly valued and well compensated. Schools, nursing homes, hospitals, this government is out to destroy. We must not let them. And one of the reasons why I wanted to share this is because she pointed out healthcare system, and Marit also talked about what this government has done to our healthcare system and how it's in a crisis right now, and what we're seeing with the staffing crisis. We don't have enough hospital staff. There's a huge nurses shortage, and they're heading towards a path of privatization for healthcare. And what we're seeing with our education system right now, with our schools, is exactly the same. I hope it's not, but what I see from this government and the way they're treating the education staff, the education workers, is in a way where they're disregarding the hard work that they do. They're disrespecting them, they're neglecting them, especially when it comes to paying them a living wage, and you're driving them away. And that will create a system that is going to collapse. And it allows for the government to then say, well, you know what, this whole education system is broken, and therefore we need to privatize things. And we know from conservative government's records, from Mike Harris to Doug Ford, this is what they do. They privatize things. They sell off public assets. They sell off public goods, public services. And that's not the direction we need to go to. We do not, healthcare is not something that we can privatize, and education, our public education, is not something that we can privatize. It's not about, who has more money and what quality education you can get. Everyone deserves to have good quality education. So thank you very much to all of you for sharing your comments and your sentiment. And we cannot let this government destroy that. Kate Jordan also shared, I'm feeling the same outrage as a mom, as an ECE by training, as a sibling to someone with special needs. I cannot fathom how our government cannot see the harm they're doing to our education workers and vicariously our children and their future. My heart breaks and sadness, my heart breaks and sadness has turned to rage. I cannot believe this. Kate, I'm with you. I know exactly how you're feeling. Joanne also wrote, Joanne Coniam said, the expectations of the system, and this is the education, the TDSP, etc. these days are unbelievable. People work so hard, almost everything they do is extra. How long can they expect all this extra with no government respect? The government should be the role model of all Ontario employees. And she goes on to talking about treating them with respect and gratitude. And then I have Vicky, who also talked about how she supports CUPE 100%. I do not have students in the system, but have several family members and friends who are EAs and teachers. And their stories they share are shocking. They're attacked on a regular basis, hitting, biting, and fight risk students. They don't do the job for the money. They do it for the love of the students. And she continues on about some of these stories as well. These educational workers do a tough job. They work hard. They help the schools function. They help support some of our most vulnerable kids in schools. And after everything these kids have gone through over the last couple of years during the pandemic, it's so critical. It's so important that they are in school with the best resources, with the best support as we can give them, best as possible. And the only way to do that is to make sure that we have the best people who are trained to help them in classrooms, trained to teach them in classrooms, trained to support them in those classrooms. And that's why we need to support our education workers. We need to support all workers across this province. I want to say thank you so much to all of you who have joined me this evening. Special shout out to Mart Stiles, who joined me as well. And to all the wonderful guests that we had that shared their stories. I really appreciate that, and I was proud to share them in the house, and I will be continuing to share the stories that many of you continue to send to me. So please feel free to send us your thoughts and your comments and your stories via email or in the comments section. Good night, and I appreciate you all. Stay safe out there, and we will